If you're new here or just haven't stopped by in a while, you may not have noticed, but I've been on a home server propaganda kick for a couple weeks now. I've been pushing that home server agenda. So the reason why is because I built my own home server / NAS a couple weeks ago, and I've been making a couple videos about it, just showing you the benefits of what it can do and how it can be useful. And for the most part, I try to appeal to a large group of people, but I want to single in on a particular group. The gamers. How can a gamer really benefit from having a home server other than just storing game files on it? I'm going to show you. So one benefit can just be hosting your own game servers on your home server. So games like Minecraft, games like Valheim, where you can actually download the server software and host them on your own machine. You may have seen some videos out there on how to host your own Valheim server, how to host your own Minecraft server, and people will, give a tech demo on how to do it on their own machine that they're working on, but not actually using a dedicated machine like a home server to host it on and just have it running 24/7, even when their gaming desktop is closed down or shut down. So hosting your own Valheim server on your home server, which is what some people do in the open source community, and let their friends join, they can join, let their whole household join, and have their own server that's just running 24/7, 7 days a week, where anybody that they allow access to can access it and play the game. So for one, you don't have to pay for monthly subscriptions just to host your Valheim server on a remote service like Amazon Web Services. And then B, it has kind of unlimited scaling. You can just add drives to it and you can expand your server kind of how as big as you want. Like I said, if you're using a paid service like AWS and you want to scale up, the price gets pretty crazy. And to justify that for just hosting your own game is a little rough sometimes. So having your own home server where you can host it, not have to worry about fees, monthly subscriptions, kind of a no-brainer, right? And a smaller benefit of hosting your own game server is you pretty much have zero ping. Since you're on the same network as the game server, you don't have to worry about latency. You pretty much can get there in 1 millisecond and back as long as your switch will allow you. The second benefit may sound obvious like I mentioned earlier, but storing your own games, right? Yes, I can store my own games, I can store my Steam library, I can store all of my ROMs and retro games, and I can access them whenever I want. Yeah, obviously you can do that with a home server, but there are some added benefits to that you may have not considered. I'm just give you a hypothetical. Let's say I sailed the 7 seas and hypothetically, some game ROMs ended up on my home server, hypothetically. Now, what if I wanted to access those? I could obviously go into the files, into the folders, click copy, drag them over, bring them to the machine I want to play the game on, but you can also run those from the server. This game right here is actually being hosted on the server that's up on my shelf over there, but it's actually running from an emulator that's on this machine. You can't see it, but the file path right here shows the file path to my home server, and this is the game that's running from it. And I'm not just running one, but I'm running 2 different instances of the emulator, both pulling from the NAS. So they're both pulling from the same library. So in theory, I could run several of these at the same time in various machines all over the house while never actually having to download the ROM onto the machine that I'm playing from. And if you're like me and like to play your retro games from various different pieces of hardware, I've got my gaming desktop here, I've got my handheld here, I've got a couple of laptops, a couple of tablets, all can, run emulators. I don't want to have to move those files around all the time. If I could just access my home server, from this device and either download it or just play it natively from the home server, I'd rather do that instead. Steam is a little bit different. I tried to give Steam a try and give the same proof of concept, but I couldn't quite get it right. It didn't have anything to do with the technology. It's more or less Steam and getting file permissions to the folder that's on the home server. But in theory, I'll be able to store my Steam games on my home server and then access them from my gaming PC with never having to transfer the files. So Steam did allow me to make a directory and save Steam games onto the home server. The problem was just running them from the home server. It sees the file is there, but when I try to click it, it gives me an access denied. I think there's some file permission things I need to get worked out. But some games are exceptions. Some games that need fast file transfer, like SSDs, like big AAA games, they'll need to get moved over from the home server onto the native hardware that I'm running the game on, because the SSD will help them a lot, loading screens and things like that. But I will be able to move them pretty fast, a lot faster than I can download them. Even though I have a gig up, gig down, moving those files locally obviously will be a little bit faster and more reliable usually. You don't have to wait on Steam servers if they're being slow or anything like that. I can just boom, copy, move, and get it moved over to the main PC pretty quickly. Now this last benefit may not be obvious right away, but just hang with me for a second. So let me paint the picture. Let's say you have an underpowered device, like a tablet or a single board computer like a Raspberry Pi or something like that. So let's say your home server has a nice CPU, plenty of RAM, and you want to utilize that as a actual computing device to host the game on, and then kind of portal in with your tablet or your single board computer. That's where virtualization comes into play. Virtualization is basically running a smaller computer inside of the larger server or bigger computer, and divvy up that CPU, divvy up that RAM, and kind of isolate them into other machines that are running their own operating systems virtually. Self-contained, they don't interact with each other, they run independently. And let's say you want it to run each as a different kind of machine or game console in this case, and you wanted to host multiple game consoles on your network. You could actually do that with a home server. It will take a little bit of learning and to get up to speed and learning about virtualization and Kubernetes. So let's say we wanted to have some virtual machines running. One of them is a Xbox 360 emulator. That can be contained in its own virtual environment that only is designed to run an Xbox 360 emulator and its Xbox 360 games. And then we had another virtualized environment that was going to run PlayStation 2 games or PlayStation 3 games. We would have that self-contained in a different virtualization hardware with maybe a little bit more power if the PS3 emulator needs it versus the 360 one. So we can kind of make that balance without them overlapping or fighting for resources. They'll be their own self-contained computers, both running within that same server, which I think is pretty cool. I think that's a really cool benefit. Let me know in the comments if you find that virtualization part interesting at all. I'll show you how it's done if you want me to. It will take a little bit of work. That's why I didn't really do it for this video if no one was really interested in it. I found it interesting. Hope you do too. Until next time, peace.